Algebra 2 Honors Cram, Skills Practice. Flashcard 1, Rewrite Expressions using I. Skills Practice 2.6-8. And what you have to remember is that the imaginary number I is a number such that I squared is equivalent to -1. And because no real numbers exist such that its square is equal to a negative number, the number I is not a part of the real number system, okay? So values of I to the nth power, n can be any number, they're going to repeat every 4 powers of I. And what I mean is that I is equivalent to the square root of -1, as you could imagine. I squared, as we just mentioned, is equal to -1 because if you square a term, you just, with a radical sign, you just eliminate the radical. I to the 3rd power, this is supposed to be an I and not 1, is equivalent to -1, or just negative times negative the square root of -1, okay? And then I to the 4th power is going to be I to the 3rd times another radical -1, which ultimately yields 1, okay? So I to the 4th is really 1. Let me rewrite that. Because as you can see, squaring radical -1 is going to leave you with -1, and -1 times negative, or -1, is going to give you 1. Just a second. This really equals -1, okay? I mean +1, not negative, so sorry, that's a positive sign. All right,
Okay,
so let's get
again,
into the
what we're
problem.
doing
Is we're rewriting expressions with negative roots using I, okay? So this is our problem that we want to solve. We want to rewrite the expression radical -49 plus radical 23, or you can say the square root of -49 plus the square root of -23. Now we want to write this using I, okay? So what you have to know is that expressions with negative roots can be rewritten for any positive real number n. So our n terms here are 49 and 23. The principal square root of a negative number (n), so our negative numbers are -49 and -40 and -23, sorry, is defined by the square root of -n. And you basically just extract -1 and you bring the I out, because remember on the title card I just showed you that I is equal to the square root of -1, and then you're left with your real number n inside the radical still, okay? All right, so let's apply this concept here. So basically we factor, we get our n terms, and we separate out the -1, or our I terms, our complex number, imaginary number portion. Okay, so our final answer is basically 7I plus I times the square root of 23. The reason why this is 7I and not I radical 49 is because 49 is a perfect square. And then 23 is not a perfect square, so we can just leave this as is, okay? So this is our rewritten expression, or our complex number in terms of I. All right? Okay.